All right, I am pumped for today. We're going to be looking at the Bertin Gambit, which is a subset, a variation of the King's Gambit. So, King's Gambit opening, Bertin variation, subset of the opening, singular line. We're going to be showing a game where Paul Morphy utilizes it. I was surprised Paul Morphy played it. He was just so solid, but playing a three-pawn Gambit, I mean, respect. We're also utilizing the standing desk today. I'm one of those people who paces. I feel like I think better when I pace. So maybe I'll make a better video. Who knows? But without further ado, let's get into it. So, King's Gambit, have you seen in the last four videos, pawn to f4, destabilizing the center. This is going to be an accepted variation, though it is going to be the sideline, that is bishop to e7. Now, bishop c4, you're going to develop against it, and the point of bishop e7 is to go check. Taking would be a mistake for white, because after takes, obviously you don't want to get into this position, where if you castle, you get mated in one. And if you don't castle, you lose. So both of those sound bad. So we do go bishop c4. Now after bishop h4, do not take the bishop. The line I used to play was king f1. This is just too solid. It's good, but it's solid. It's not fun. We're going for fun chess. That is pawn to g3. The difference here is it's just a bishop. It only guards the diagonals, not the verticals, not the horizontals. So we're not in any danger. They should take the pawn, and now an amazing move, castling. So this is the gambit. You allow the e5 pawn to go to f4, g3, h2, and then you just say, hey, I'm going to use it as an umbrella pawn. I feel pretty safe on this diagonal. I am attacking you, and your pieces are misplaced. And just to show you, so this is an equal position. So you give up 3 pawns. It is equal. It is hard to play for black, though, however. Let's say they go bishop f6. Let's say they don't want to, give up their bishop. Bishop f6, I think, maybe a sensible move. This is not good. You just go e5, kicking out their bishop. When their bishop goes to e7, this is going to be a common theme. Thumb and Keem. Said it backwards. King takes f7. Now knight g5, double check. So now the double check, they cannot block. If they go king back to e8, that is a queen trap. Insane. That is a queen trap, and that is the best they have. King g6 would work no better because you still threaten the queen, and wherever they move the queen, they get mated in 2 moves. So that is one of the possibilities. If they go knight f6, this is the problem. They need to guard their bishop. They have no guardian on their bishop. They just lose right there. What else could they do? Well, let's say they go bishop e7. Let's say I see the move e5. I'm going to go bishop e7, stop some tactics. That it does not. Bishop takes f7. King takes f7. Knight e5. Again, double check. Plus the knight is not even under attack. And this is just basically mate. If they go king e8, you just go queen h5 check. You could also win the queen if you want, but, checkmating is better. So check here. Knight takes g6. They cannot take. That is mate in 1 alongside the rook. The queen is used. If they go knight f6, you might be like, oh, if I take their rook, I lose my queen. Well, not if you take their knight, right? You sack the rook for the knight after bishop takes. You don't even need to take the rook. You can just go knight e5, queen f7. Their king is indeed in a mating box. Knight c4, king c5, queen d5, king b4, pawn a3, and checkmate with a pawn. I love checkmating with a pawn. Oh no, my rook, right? So that would be the end of the game. And that's if bishop f6, bishop e7. We went over knight f6. What else could they do? I mean, let's say they go knight c6. This move is basically always available. So bishop takes f7, king takes f7. Sometimes it's winning. Other times you just have a slight edge. This would be the latter of the two. But you still get the same tactics, just no mate, unfortunately. I would just maintain the tension that you have. And yeah, winning position for white. Now, the only move they have in this position, believe it or not, the only move they have is pawn to d5. So they kind of need to know their theory to play this move. It's kind of like in the fried liver when they go d5, just cutting the connection of the bishop to f7. Here what you want to do is bishop takes d5, creating all the same tactics again. And now it's hard for them to play. You're always threatening that bishop f7 stuff, so probably they're going to go knight f6. The difference now is they do win a piece, and they'll also be hitting your knight on h4. So I recommend bishop takes f7, and after king takes, now knight takes h4. And at least you're saying, hey, you are pinned. Maybe I can exploit the pin, win a piece. develop your queen side, get full control of the center, and it's a game. And it's going to be an enjoyable game at that. You are now only down one pawn. Ironically, it is this pawn giving your king safety. Umbrella pawns are really funny, honestly. And that is basically the theory behind this opening. I would assume they're going to take the whole way. Why would they not? If they don't, you get all the advantages with just extra material. So now I want to get into the Paul Morphy game. Paul Morphy is playing white, and we do get the Cunnigham defense. And then we get the Bertin Gambit out of the Cunnigham defense, just like we just looked at. Now, his opponent does play the best move, d5, good stuff. And he does take with the bishop, and now we do get knight f6. So the best way for black to play. We get bishop f7, knight h4. We did just review this, and now rook to e8. So the computer wanted rook to f8 to manually castle. Rook to e8 claims a file. They're still going to manually castle, and they wanted their rook on the e file. So definitely sensible. It's just a computer mistake. d3, creating the pawn chain, opening up the dark squared bishop. Very nice. And this is that common pawn structure we looked at in yesterday's video, in the prior King's Gambit video. Now, okay, bishop h3, it does create a threat on the rook. This rook is pinning this knight. This queen takes advantage of the fact that this knight is pinned to the king. They can't go g6, you just have queen takes h7 again, exploiting the pin. So what do? They go king back to g8, getting out of the pin. Now they have successfully castled. And what do we do in this position? Our rook is under attack. Our queen is hanging. Their king looks safe. Make their king unsafe. Give up the rook for the knight. They cannot take with the queen because then you win. So they have to take with the pawn. But now look at this guy. That guy is not a happy camper. That guy is pretty exposed, I would say. Now, knight c3, trying to get out the queen side. You have to see, at the right time, we are going to capture this pawn, because the benefit that we get from it now is king safety. But once our king is safe regardless, we do want to take, because that's what's going to allow us to bring the rook to the g file, and you can see what happens when the rook goes to the g file. Now, rook to e5, an interesting move, attacking the queen, trying to get it to move, and centralizing the rook, just bringing it more into the game. So Morphy retreats, queen to f3, always retreating with a threat. That is good. Now we get queen d7 guarding the bishop. We get bishop f4 trying to get the rook to move. And ironically, the rook does not move. The reason the rook does not move is, let's say it went to the 7th. Rook on the 7th, great defense. The problem is the knight comes in, and you see there is just too many threats and too many pieces white has attacking. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna sack that rook. And Morphy's like, I don't even want the rook right now. You know, my pieces are fine. I'm going to get rid of the pawn and create bigger threats than just winning material. Bishop g4 attacking the queen. Rook g1. The amount of pins black face this game is unhealthy, to be honest. So bishop g4, rook g1, pinning the bishop. And now we get pawn to h5. He doesn't want to go down material because that is his one advantage. So he's like, okay, I'm just going to solidify my pinned piece. Now he takes the rook, and the knight can take, but then queen takes f6 looks devastating. You're destabilizing everything, and the queen and the knight are just so coordinated. So he takes with the pawn. Now we get knight d5. Again, this queen is not hanging, and we get knight to d4. He's like, okay, I'm under a ton of pressure. I want to trade pieces. I want to trade down into an endgame. It's equal. Yes, his pawn structure is better, right? How many pawn islands does white have? 1. How many pawn islands does black have? 1, 2, 3. So a slight deficit in structure, but he'd be thankful to reach an equal endgame, material-wise at least. So we got knight f6, the fork, and now do not take the queen. See, if you take the queen, black would have gotten what they wanted. You do not want to give your opponent what they want, typically in chess. You would be up a pawn, they'd have a bishop, you'd have a knight, rook endgame. Imagine though the bishop and the knight traded, and then he managed to somehow trade the h pawn for the e pawn, and it's a rook on 3 versus a rook on 4, and it's a draw. That would be unfortunate. So if there's ever any type of draw in sight, even in the distance, even if it seems too far away, why trade the queens when you're the aggressor, right? You're attacking, you want to leave queens on the board. So this threatens checkmate. This is under attack. Queen g7 saves the queen, stops the mate, but enters another pin. How do you exploit the pin? Knight takes h5. Bishop cannot take because you would lose your queen. Queen still needs to guard against mate, so queen h7. But now that looks like a bishop. That looks like a knight. And white is closing out the game. You see, ironically, black's king is less safe than white's king. After giving up 3 pawns, 3 of your kingside pawns and castling, who would have assumed at the end of the day white's king was safer? We got queen h3, getting out of the pin right away. And just to show you the point of this move, let's say he plays something like rook f8. The threat is knight g6, always exploiting the pins. Queen can't take, king moves, we win the queen for free. So he goes king h7, getting out of any checks, getting closer to the queen so that he can guard against any discoveries if need be. A calm c3, this knight is well placed. If we move the knight, it'll be less well placed. That would be the logic. Rook g6, computer doesn't even understand this move. It calls it a mistake, but it's a very concise win. The knight can't really move, so he chooses to guard the knight, and we get rook takes e6. So this was the whole point. Just simplifying into an endgame where you win a knight until it is equal. But is it really equal? We are up a pawn right now. And you see, if this king was like over here, it would probably be a draw, right? Because black is giving us check. But the king, the pin is what wins the game. This whole game, it seems like. So queen h3, and black is just forced to trade. And now you're just up a clean pawn and your structure is perfect. Anyone can win that in their sleep. The way white converts it is, of course, bring the king in. It is your best piece. Black stops the infiltration of the king, but we are up a pawn. So he trades knowing that the way to win this 2-on-3 is you just use this pawn as a decoy, so you don't actually care about the pawn. You just use it as a decoy, bring it up the board, and then at the end of the day, you just give it up, and you'll win the other 2 pawns and have 2 passers. So the game kind of ends like that. He's just winning it as if it was a king and pawn endgame, bringing his pieces into the board, and then gives up the pawn. So king c7. And this is just easy way to win it. They take, we take, they march, their pawn gets stuck, we win. 2-on-0. And in this position, black resigned because this is hopeless. 2 pawns is never going to be a draw against a king unless you stalemate, which Paul Morphy would not. So I hope you enjoy this Cunnigham Bertin Gambit. It's very interesting, very solid, ironically. You don't typically describe a 3-pawn sacrifice as solid, but this is the best way black could play in the opening, and look at what white achieved from that. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you get this gambit. It's super fun. Just key points, sack on f7. And yeah, good luck. Thank you for watching.